Picture this: a man who owns 17 luxury cars, 3 private jets, and a penthouse worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. A man who can buy anything, go anywhere, and influence anyone. Yet on this particular rainy evening he would encounter someone who would shatter every belief he held about success, happiness, and the true meaning of wealth. This is the story of Maximiliano Corvallis, a tech billionaire whose empire stretched across 6 continents, and a 12-year-old boy named Kaelen whose words would bring this powerful man to his knees in the middle of a storm. What happened that night would change both their lives forever. Maximiliano Corvallis sat in his corner office on the 47th floor of the Corvallis Tower, watching the city sprawl beneath him like a chessboard he'd already won. At 38, he had built Technova Industries from a college dorm room idea into a global empire worth $47 billion. Everything about Max screamed wealth and power, yet his eyes held something that no amount of money could purchase: a deep, persistent emptiness. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had everything he'd ever dreamed of as a kid growing up in a modest suburb, yet he felt more isolated now than ever. His days were consumed by board meetings and merger negotiations. His nights were spent alone in his penthouse, surrounded by priceless art and deafening silence. His ex-wife had left him 2 years ago, taking their daughter Sophia. "You love your money more than you love us," she'd said, and he hadn't been able to argue. "Mr. Corvallis?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your car is ready for the 7 o'clock meeting." Max sighed, straightening his tie. Another evening, another critical meeting. Tonight's agenda involved finalizing the acquisition of a promising startup, a decision that would either make him another billion or cost him hundreds of millions. The stakes were always high in his world, but somehow they felt increasingly meaningless. The rain had started as a gentle drizzle when Max slipped into the back seat of his Bentley. His chauffeur, Harrison, had been with him for 5 years but remained a polite stranger. Max barely acknowledged Harrison's comment about the rough weather, his attention focused on quarterly reports glowing on his tablet screen. The rain intensified as they moved through the city, transforming into a proper downpour. Max was so absorbed in his work that he barely noticed when the car began to slow, then stopped completely. "What's the problem?" he asked, finally looking up. Harrison's voice carried an apologetic tone. "I'm sorry, sir, the engine just died. The electronics seem completely dead." The timing couldn't have been worse. The meeting was in 30 minutes. Max looked out the window and realized they weren't in his usual part of the city. Instead of the gleaming financial district, they were in an older, rougher neighborhood. "Where exactly are we?" he asked, concern creeping into his voice. Harrison checked his GPS, frowning. "The navigation system malfunctioned. We took a wrong turn somewhere." The rain was coming down in sheets now. Max tried calling his assistant, but his phone showed no signal. The electronic fortress of his car had become an expensive tomb. "Sir," Harrison said, "there's an underpass about 50 yards ahead. You might want to wait there while I try to get help." Max looked at his watch. 20 minutes until the meeting. The acquisition would have to wait. Reluctantly, he opened the door and stepped into the storm. The rain hit him like a physical force, soaking through his $1,000 suit in seconds. He'd never experienced weather like this without the buffer of wealth. The water was shockingly cold, and he found himself gasping as he stumbled toward the underpass. The underpass was a concrete tunnel beneath a railway bridge, dimly lit by a single flickering streetlight. As Max entered, shaking water from his jacket, he realized he wasn't alone. In the far corner sat a small figure. It was a boy, maybe 12 years old, wearing clothes that had seen better years. His hair was wet and matted, and he sat on a piece of cardboard. Despite his obvious circumstances, there was something in his posture, a dignity that seemed out of place. Max's first instinct was to keep his distance, but something about the boy's stillness, the way he sat without fidgeting despite the discomfort, made Max pause. The boy looked up, and Max was struck by his eyes. They were clear and intelligent, holding a kind of peaceful acceptance that was unsettling in someone so young. "Rough night," the boy said simply, his voice carrying unexpected maturity. Max nodded, still keeping his distance. "Yes, it is." "Car trouble?" The boy gestured toward the street where Harrison could be seen trying to flag down passing vehicles. "Something like that." Max wasn't sure why he was engaging in conversation. The boy seemed to understand Max's discomfort. "I'm Kaelen," he said, offering a slight smile. "I don't bite, if that's what you're worried about." Despite himself, Max found his tension easing. "Maximiliano. Max." "That's a strong name," Kaelen said. "Means greatest in Latin, doesn't it?" Max was surprised. "You know Latin?" Kaelen shrugged. "I read a lot. The library downtown has books about names and words. I like to understand where things come from." The casual mention of the library shifted something in Max's perception. This wasn't just a street kid. This was someone who sought knowledge. "Do you live here?" Max asked awkwardly. Kaelen's smile was patient. "I live lots of places. Tonight, I'm living here. Tomorrow, maybe somewhere else. The rain doesn't last forever." There was something profound in the simple statement. This boy, who clearly had nothing, spoke with philosophical acceptance that Max had been searching for in expensive therapy sessions. "Aren't you cold?" Max asked, noticing the boy's soaked jacket. "Cold is just a feeling," Kaelen replied. "It passes, like everything else. Being angry about being cold doesn't make you any warmer, it just makes you cold and angry." Max stared at the boy, processing this unexpected wisdom. He thought about his own reactions to minor inconveniences, his frustration over the car, his annoyance at the rain. "How long have you been on your own?" Max asked carefully. Kaelen's expression grew thoughtful. "About 2 years now. My parents died in a car accident when I was 10. I went to live with my uncle, but he had problems with drinking. It wasn't safe there." The matter-of-fact way Kaelen shared this struck Max. There was no self-pity, no bid for sympathy, just simple honesty. "I'm sorry," Max said, and meant it. "Thank you," Kaelen replied. "But being sorry doesn't change anything. I learned that worrying about things I can't control just makes everything harder." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the rain. Max found himself studying the boy's face, trying to understand how someone so young could possess such equanimity. "Can I ask you something?" Kaelen said eventually. Max nodded. "You look like you're carrying something heavy. Not physically, but in here." Kaelen touched his chest. "What makes someone who has everything look so sad?" The question hit Max like a physical blow. This child, who had lost everything and lived on the streets, was asking him about sadness. I don't know what you mean," Max said, but he knew it was a lie. Kaelen's eyes held gentle understanding. "My mom used to say that the richest people are often the poorest inside. I never understood what she meant, until I started living on the streets. I see all kinds of people now. People in expensive cars who look like they're in prison. People in suits who look like they're carrying the weight of the world." Max felt his chest tighten. "And what do you see when you look at me?" Kaelen considered the question seriously. "I see someone who's forgotten how to be happy. Someone who's so busy trying to have everything that he's forgotten what it feels like to need anything. Someone who's surrounded by people but completely alone." The accuracy was breathtaking. Max felt exposed, as if this 12-year-old had seen through defenses he'd spent decades building. "How do you do it?" Max asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How do you stay positive when you have nothing?" Kaelen smiled, and for the first time, Max saw real joy in it. "Who says I have nothing? I have today. I have this conversation with you. I have books at the library, and I have people who matter to me. I have dreams and hopes and the chance to help other people. That's not nothing. That's everything." As if summoned by his words, an elderly woman appeared at the entrance. She was clearly homeless as well, carrying a torn plastic bag and wearing layers of mismatched clothing. Her face was weathered, but her eyes were kind. "Kaelen, honey," she called out. "I found some soup at the shelter. They had extra." She held up a thermos container. "Thank you, Nana Rose," Kaelen said, standing to greet her. "But I'm not hungry right now. Why don't you keep it for yourself?" The woman shook her head. "You haven't eaten since yesterday morning. Don't think I don't notice these things." "I'll eat tomorrow," Kaelen said gently. "But right now, there's probably someone who needs it more than I do." Max watched this exchange with growing amazement. Here was a child who hadn't eaten in over 24 hours being offered food, and his first instinct was to think of someone else. Nana Rose noticed Max. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had company." "This is Max," Kaelen said. "His car broke down." "Max, this is Nana Rose. She takes care of everyone around here." Nana Rose studied Max with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The expensive suit, the watch, the shoes. But instead of suspicion, her expression held only curiosity. "Pleasure to meet you, Max," she said. "Any friend of Kaelen's is welcome here." "Nana Rose used to be a teacher," Kaelen explained. "She taught 3rd grade for 30 years before she lost her house." "Hard times can come to anyone," Nana Rose said simply. "The important thing is how we treat each other when they do." She opened the thermos and poured soup into the cap, offering it to Kaelen. "At least have a little bit." Kaelen accepted graciously, taking tiny sips and savoring each one. When finished, he handed the cap back to Nana Rose. "Now you have some," he insisted. As the two shared the soup, Max felt like he was witnessing something sacred. Here were two people with virtually nothing, sharing with joy and gratitude. The contrast to his own world, where billion-dollar deals were negotiated with suspicion, was stark. "Kaelen tells me you read a lot," Max said. The boy's face lit up. "Books are amazing. They let you travel anywhere, be anyone, learn anything. The library has thousands of them, and they're all free." "What kind of books do you like?" "All kinds. History, science, stories about adventure and friendship. I especially like books about people who overcame difficult things. They remind me that challenges are just opportunities wearing disguises." Max blinked. "Where did you learn that?" "From a book about a man who failed at business 6 times before he succeeded. He said that every failure taught him something he needed to know. I think about that a lot." "And you believe that challenges are opportunities?" Kaelen nodded earnestly. "I have to. If I believed that being homeless was just a terrible thing that happened to me, I'd spend all my time feeling sorry for myself. But if I believe it's teaching me something, about resilience, about compassion, about what really matters, then it becomes something I can use to help other people." Max felt something frozen beginning to thaw. "Help other people? How?" "Well, like with Tommy. He's a veteran who sleeps near the park. He has nightmares and doesn't trust anyone. But because I know what it's like to be scared and alone, I can sit with him when he's having a bad night. I can remind him that he's not alone." "You do that? At 12 years old?" "Age doesn't matter when someone needs help," Kaelen said. "Kindness doesn't require a license." Max thought about his own charitable donations, large sums written on checks, tax-deductible contributions to organizations he'd never visited. Suddenly it felt hollow, compared to a 12-year-old sitting with a scared veteran in the dark. "Don't you ever feel angry?" Max asked. "About your situation? About the unfairness?" Kaelen considered this carefully. "Sometimes, but I learned that anger is like holding a hot coal. It burns you more than anyone else. And besides, who would I be angry at? Life? God? The drunk driver who killed my parents? My uncle who couldn't overcome his addiction? Any of them, all of them. But what would that accomplish? Would it bring my parents back? Would it give me a house? Would it make me happy?" Kaelen shook his head. "I decided I'd rather use my energy to create something good than to destroy something bad." Max felt something shift inside him. He thought about all the anger he carried, at competitors, at employees who disappointed him, at his ex-wife for leaving. "Sometimes I think," Kaelen continued, "that the people who have the most stuff are the ones who understand the least about what makes life worth living. What do you mean? Well, when you have everything, you don't have to depend on anyone else. You don't have to learn to be grateful for small things. You don't have to discover how strong you really are. You miss out on the best parts of being human. Max stared at the boy, feeling as if he was seeing himself clearly for the first time. The best parts? Connection. Real connection, not just people who want something from you. Gratitude for simple things, like a warm meal or a dry place to sleep. The satisfaction of helping someone when you don't have to. The joy of friendship that isn't based on what you can give or receive. Each word hit Max like a revelation. When was the last time he'd felt genuinely connected to another person? When had he last felt grateful for something simple? When had he helped someone without calculating the benefit? You know what the saddest thing is, Kaelen said, his voice gentle but penetrating. I think some people become so focused on having everything that they forget how to need anything. And if you don't need anything, you can't experience the joy of receiving it. You can't experience the satisfaction of earning it. You can't experience the connection that comes from sharing it. Harrison appeared at the entrance, dripping wet and frustrated. Mr. Corvallis? I've called for assistance. There's going to be a significant delay, at least 2 hours. Max looked at his watch. The meeting was already over. The acquisition would have to wait. A year ago, this would have sent him into a rage. Tonight, he found he didn't care. It's fine, Harrison, he said, surprising himself. These things happen. Harrison retreated, clearly confused by his employer's unexpected calm. Important meeting? Kaelen asked. It was supposed to be, Max replied. A business deal worth about $1 billion. He expected some reaction. Instead, Kaelen simply nodded as if billion-dollar deals were ordinary. Do you enjoy your work? Kaelen asked. Max opened his mouth to give his standard response about the thrill of building something, the satisfaction of success. But looking into Kaelen's clear eyes, he couldn't lie. I used to, he said quietly. Or at least I thought I did. Now I'm not sure I know the difference between enjoying something and just being good at it. That's a wise distinction, Nana Rose said. I loved teaching, even when it was hard. I woke up every morning excited to see what my students would learn. When was the last time you woke up excited about anything? Kaelen asked Max. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Max searched his memory, trying to remember a morning when he'd felt anticipation rather than obligation. He couldn't find one. I can't remember, he admitted. That's the saddest thing I've heard all day, Kaelen said. But his voice held compassion rather than judgment. And today I heard about Mrs. Chen losing her apartment and Tommy having another bad night. Max felt a profound shift happening inside him. This boy, who had every reason to be bitter and defeated, was feeling sorry for a billionaire's emotional poverty. Can I tell you something? Kaelen said, moving closer. Something my mother told me before she died. Max nodded, not trusting his voice. She said that the purpose of life isn't to be happy, it's to be useful, to be helpful, to make some kind of difference that matters. She said that happiness is just a side effect of living with purpose. The words hit Max like a physical blow. He thought about his life, his achievements, his massive wealth. What difference did any of it make? Who was helped by his success besides himself? I don't think I've ever been useful, Max said, the words coming out in a whisper. That's not true, Kaelen said gently. You employ thousands of people. You create products that help people. You donate money to charities. But I don't feel it, Max said, his voice growing stronger. None of it feels real. It's all just business, transactions, numbers on spreadsheets. Then maybe you're doing it wrong, Kaelen suggested. Maybe the problem isn't what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Max looked at this remarkable child and felt something break open inside him. All the walls he'd built around his heart suddenly crumbled. I've been so alone, he said, the words torn from somewhere deep inside. So incredibly alone. I have everything anyone could want, and I'm the loneliest person I know. "You're not alone now," Kaelen said simply. And in that moment Max understood. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen, truly understood, truly connected to another human being. "I want to help you," Max said suddenly. "I want to get you off the streets, get you into a good school, give you opportunities." Kaelen held up a hand. "That's very kind of you, but I don't need rescuing. I need understanding. I need to know that my life has meaning as it is, not just as it could be." Max felt his breath catch. "What do you mean?" "I mean that every person has value regardless of their circumstances. I don't need to be fixed or saved. I need to be seen and appreciated for who I am right now, today." The profundity hit Max like lightning. He realized he'd been looking at Kaelen as a problem to be solved. But Kaelen was already whole, already valuable, already making a difference. "You're remarkable," Max said, his voice filled with awe. "No," Kaelen replied. "I'm just a person, like you, like everyone. We all have the same capacity for wisdom, for kindness, for making a difference. The only difference is whether we choose to use it." Max felt tears beginning to form. "I don't know if I remember how to choose that." "It's not about remembering," Kaelen said. "It's about deciding. Right now, in this moment, you can decide to be different. You can decide to use your gifts to help people, to connect with people, to matter to people." "But I don't know how." "Yes, you do," Kaelen said with absolute certainty. "You know how to care. You're doing it right now. You know how to listen. You've been listening to me. You know how to see people. You're seeing me. That's all it takes." "I want to be better," Max said, the words coming from a place he'd forgotten existed. "I want to be the kind of person who makes a difference. I want to be useful." "Then you will be," Kaelen said with simple confidence. And then Kaelen said something that brought Max to his knees, literally. "You know what I think?" the boy said, his voice gentle but penetrating. "I think you've been trying so hard to be somebody that you forgot how to be somebody who matters. You've been climbing a mountain your whole life, but you've been climbing the wrong mountain." Max felt the truth of these words in his bones. He had been climbing, relentlessly, obsessively, successfully, but toward what? More money? More power? And what had he found at the top? Isolation. Emptiness. "The mountain I want to climb," Kaelen continued, "is the one where every step up means lifting someone else up too. Where reaching the top means everyone gets to see the view." Max's knees buckled, not from weakness, but from the weight of recognition. He found himself kneeling in the concrete tunnel, looking up at a 12-year-old boy who had just redefined everything he thought he knew about success. "I've been climbing alone," Max whispered, tears now flowing freely. "I've been climbing alone my whole life." "But you don't have to keep climbing alone," Kaelen said, kneeling down beside him. "That's the beautiful thing about mountains. They're big enough for everyone." In that moment, Max understood something profound. Wealth wasn't about having more than others, it was about having enough to share. Success wasn't about rising above others, it was about lifting others up. "I want to start over," Max said, his voice breaking. "I want to learn how to climb the right mountain." "You don't need to start over," Kaelen said, placing a small hand on Max's shoulder. "You just need to start here. Start now. Start with caring about someone other than yourself." The rain had stopped while they talked, and dawn was beginning to appear. As they emerged from the underpass, Max saw the neighborhood differently. These weren't just buildings and streets. They were home to people with stories, dignity, wisdom born from struggle. By the time Harrison got the car running again, Max had made several decisions. He would start a foundation focused on providing not just money, but dignity and hope. He would restructure his business to focus on purpose as well as profit. And he would measure his success not just in dollars earned, but in lives improved. But most importantly, he would never forget Kaelen's lesson, that the richest people are those who understand that wealth is meant to be shared, that success is meant to lift others up, and that the only mountain worth climbing is the one where everyone gets to see the view. As Max prepared to leave, he turned to Kaelen one last time. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for showing me what I was missing." "You weren't missing anything," Kaelen replied. "You just needed to remember what you already knew, and now you have." Max smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years. He had entered that underpass as a billionaire who had everything but felt empty. He was leaving as a man who understood that true wealth isn't about what you have, it's about what you give, what you share, and whom you lift up along the way. The boy who had nothing had given him everything, and in return, Max would spend the rest of his life making sure that gift was passed on to others. 6 months later, Max stood in the same underpass, now transformed into a community center with resources for job training, education, and support services. It had become a symbol of what was possible when people with different kinds of wealth came together. Kaelen was there as a partner, a consultant, a teacher. His wisdom had become invaluable to Max Foundation, ensuring their efforts truly met community needs. "Do you ever regret it?" Max asked, watching Kaelen help a new arrival. "Regret what?" "That night. Meeting me. The way it changed everything." Kaelen looked at him with that same clear gaze. "The only thing I regret is that it took so long for us to meet. Think of all the time we wasted climbing the wrong mountains." Max laughed, a sound that had become more frequent. "I don't think of it as wasted time. I think of it as the journey I needed to take to be ready for the lesson you had to teach me." "And what lesson was that?" "The only wealth worth having is the kind you can share. That the only success worth achieving is the kind that lifts others up. That the only life worth living is one that makes a difference." Kaelen smiled. "Those are good lessons, but you know what the best part is? Yeah. Now you get to teach them to someone else." If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about what really matters in life, then remember Kaelen's words. The mountain I want to climb is the one where every step up means lifting someone else up too. Consider your own mountain. Are you climbing alone or bringing others with you? Are you using your gifts to make a difference in someone else's life? Don't forget to like this video if it moved you, comment below with your thoughts about what true wealth means to you, and subscribe for more stories that change the way you see the world. Because sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. As they walked through the community center that evening, Max noticed something extraordinary happening. A young mother named Esperanza was teaching computer skills to elderly residents, her toddler playing quietly nearby. In the corner, a former corporate executive named Victor, who had lost everything in a bankruptcy, was mentoring teenagers on financial literacy. The space buzzed with an energy Max had never experienced in his corporate boardrooms. "This is what I was trying to tell you that night," Kaelen said, following Max's gaze. "When people share what they have, knowledge, time, hope, it multiplies, instead of diminishing." Max watched Esperanza patiently explain email basics to an elderly man who reminded him of his own grandfather. "In my world, sharing meant losing competitive advantage. Information was power to be hoarded." "But look at her," Kaelen pointed to Esperanza. "She's teaching skills she learned from a free online course. By sharing what she knows, she's not losing anything. She's gaining purpose, connection, respect. And that man will teach his neighbor, who'll teach someone else." A teenage girl approached them hesitantly. "Excuse me, Mr. Corvallis. I'm Amira. I wanted to thank you for the scholarship program, but more than that, I wanted to thank you for listening to us about what we actually needed." Max remembered the Foundation's early days, when he'd almost funded a traditional after-school program. Kaelen had insisted they ask the teenagers themselves what would help most. The answer surprised everyone. entrepreneurship classes, and micro-loans for small business ideas. "What did you start?" Max asked Amira. Her eyes lit up. "A tutoring service. I speak 3 languages, so I help immigrant kids with homework while they teach me about their cultures. I'm saving for college, but I'm also building bridges in our community." After Amira left, Kaelen turned to Max. "See what happens when you trust people to know what they need?" "It's the opposite of everything I learned in business school," Max admitted. "We were taught to identify problems and impose solutions. You showed me how to identify strengths and amplify them." They paused at a bulletin board covered with photos and testimonials. Max's favorite was from Tommy, the veteran Kaelen had mentioned that first night. His photo showed him leading a support group, his eyes clear and confident. The caption read, "Healed people, heal people." "It reminds me of something important," Kaelen said, reading Max's expression. "Everyone has something valuable to offer, even in their darkest moments. Tommy's struggles with PTSD made him the perfect person to help others with similar battles. Max thought about his own journey. And my struggles with isolation and emptiness made me understand how many successful people feel lost, despite their achievements." "Exactly. Your pain became your purpose. That's the real mountain we're climbing, turning our wounds into wisdom, our struggles into strength for others." Standing there, surrounded by people who had transformed their challenges into contributions, Max finally understood the complete lesson. True wealth wasn't just about sharing resources, it was about recognizing that every person, regardless of their circumstances, possessed unique value that could lift others up. The homeless boy had taught him that the greatest riches were found not in bank accounts, but in the endless capacity for human beings to heal, help, and hope together.